Welcome to the Ruckus Associates SmartZone Administrator demonstration series for SmartZone OS 5 release. In this course, we will show you the functionality of SmartZone OS 5, along with the basic configuration of the many aspects of the controller. In this video, I will cover guest pass authentication. We'll create a guest access portal, associate it with a WLAN, and then show how a special guest pass administrator can be provisioned to generate guest passes. Finally, we'll test what we've done by logging in using a guest pass. Let's get started. There are several options for providing wireless access for users you don't know about in advance. You may set up an open guest WLAN with no authentication at all. Anyone within range can join the network. This has obvious security implications if the WLAN is not isolated from other networks. Another option is to set a password and create a password or pre-shared key that gets distributed to the guests. Again, there are security implications since the password or key can be shared with anyone once it's been given out. Guest pass authentication allows you to provision secure, password-protected access to guests for a limited time and a limited number of devices, reducing the risk of unauthorized access. Let's think about an example of how this might work in a real situation. Let's say you have a sales team from a software vendor coming on site to present a demonstration of their cloud offerings. They need internet access for the duration of the presentation, but no other services or access. You want the front desk receptionist to be able to create temporary passes for these guests. In order to enable guests to log into the wireless LAN, we first need to create a guest access portal. This is done through services and profiles, hotspots, and portals. Note that we're logged in here as the partner administrator. Later we'll create a guest pass administrator user and assign the guest pass administrator role to that person so that they can create guest passes. So what we're going to do is drill down to the zone where we want to create our guest portal and click create. We're going to give this a name, Team X Guest Portal, and select the language, English by default. Now we have a choice as to whether we can redirect the user to the URL they typed in initially, or we can redirect them to a specific page. For now, I'm going to keep that as redirect to the URL that the user intends to visit. If you have an SMS gateway set up, you can communicate with your users via text, but we're going to leave that disabled for now. And there are also default terms and conditions that will be displayed on the portal when the user logs in. You can further customize the portal by adding a logo. And there's a limit on the size of the logo that you can use, but well, there you go. Let's try that again. I think I got one that's 96 pixels, so this should be small enough. You can also edit the title that you want. And click OK to create the guest portal. Next, we want to create the wireless LAN that the guests will log into. And as with all wireless LANs, we'll go to the wireless LANs section here and drill down to the zone in which we want to create the wireless LAN, and even to the wireless LAN group. And we'll click create here. And we'll give our wireless LAN a name and the SSID to match it. So Team X Guest WLAN. Notice that the SSID mirrors that. We'll create that in our zone. I was wrong about that. So Team X zone, and within our Team X WLAN group 1. Now for authentication options, we're going to choose guest access here. And we'll leave the method open and encryption set to none. As we drill down here, for the guest access portal, this gives you the option, if you have several defined, you can select from this drop down, but it's populated with the one that we just built. Bypass CNA is on by default. We'll leave that way, and we'll leave guest authentication as guest and leave guest accounting off. One other thing I want to point out is wireless client isolation is on by default for all wireless LANs. And in this case, where we have guests, we probably want to leave that on as well. Click OK to create the WLAN. And now the guest portal is associated with this guest wireless LAN. Now we'll create the user account for the receptionist to be able to provision guest passes to visitors. We'll go to Administration, Admins, and Roles to create this administrator, and select the Administrators tab. Drill down to the domain in which we want to create the user account and click Create. We'll give the account a name and a password. Repeat that. And additional information if we want to, but this will be a shared user account. Now we'll create the role or group for this user with the permissions as a guest pass administrator. So we'll go to Groups, again select the domain, and click Create. And we'll give this role a name, TMX Guest Pass Admin. And you can see under here, under Admissions, we already have a preset for Guest Pass Admin. And we'll leave the account security as it is. And when we click the Next box, you'll see that Guest Pass, we have full access to guest passes over here on the right hand side. That's already pre-selected. We could customize this if we wanted to, but we'll just keep it that way. We want it provisioned in the TMX domain, and so we'll click the right arrow to add the TMX domain. And we also want this provision for the whole partner domain, so we'll add that one as well. And now we'll add the TMX GPA user account that we just created. Finally, we'll review all this. It's Guest Pass Admin. Can create guest passes in the Guest Pass template, and so that's all good. We'll click OK. So we've created the guest access portal, assigned it to a wireless LAN, and created a user and role for a guest pass administrator to log in with limited permissions to create the guest passes for guests. Now let's see the actual creation of guest passes in action. I'll log out and log back in with the user account that we just created. And as you remember, this was TMX GPA was the user account, and that's at TMX partner. Type in the password. All right, and once I'm logged in, you'll notice that the only permissions I have are related to creating guest passes or editing guest pass templates or creating new templates. So let's generate a guest pass. So I have two options here. So first of all, I select my domain. I can either generate an individual guest pass one at a time, or I can import guest passes from a CSV file, a comma separated values text file. And I'll do both, but we'll start with generating a guest pass individually. And you can see here if I've got additional templates, I can add those in, but we won't cover creating templates here. We'll just use the default. So I'm going to generate a guest pass, and I'm going to give this a name. So let's call it vendor Y. And I'll select the zone where we want to define this. The number of passes. Now let's say we had a number of people coming in and they all wanted to use this same pass. We could generate several passes, or if they were coming back for multiple days. But we're only going to create one pass, and let's make it for 4 hours. That'll be the length of the presentation this morning. Okay, under advanced options, we have the option to have the system generate random keywords, or we can type in a password ourselves. So let's just type in Ruckus1 splat. We can define the 4 hours when that starts, if it starts from right now when I create this, or if it's effective from the first time they log in. And I can also limit the number of devices. So for example, we could allow somebody to log in with, both their laptop and their mobile phone, but let's just keep that to 1. And click generate. And later we'll come back and we'll log in with this. We'll show the guest access portal, and we'll log in with this vendor Y using the password that we just created. Now let's see how we would import a number of guest passes at the same time using a comma separated value, or CSV file. So I'm going to click on import guest pass here, and we have a sample that you can download and then just fill in your own information. I've already done that with this file here, guest pass file, and let me just open that for a second so you can see what it looks like. So we have 3 columns basically, a name, description, and the key. And if the key is left empty, the system will take that as, okay, I need to randomly generate a key. So for Sunil in sales, that'll get generated automatically. So let me close this so I can import it. 3 guest passes. Okay, so that's right. We want it in our Team X guest WLAN zone, and WLAN. And again, we can select from effective from first use. Let's make this 4 hours, and limit it to 1 device each, and click import. All right, and there you see those 3 users are created. You can see that Sunil's password is randomly generated, and then these can be distributed to the guest users. Okay, so we've put everything together. We've created our guest access portal. We've created the administrator user account and the permissions for a guest pass administrator to go in, and that we've gone in and generated some guest passes. So now let's see how that all works for the end user. So I'm logged in here as to a Windows machine. I'm logged in virtually, so this may be a little slow. You can see I'm already connected to the Team X guest WLAN that we just created. And I'm just going to open a browser here and type in Ruckus Wireless. But here you go. Here is the guest access portal. You remember, welcome to the Ruckus Networks guest access portal. Here's the logo that we added there. And I'm going to log in with that vendor Y password that we created. And I'll click login. You'll see that those terms of use that we selected by default are there. Accept. When I click continue, this should take me to the Ruckus Wireless site, and so it does. So as a vendor, I can come in and have access to the internet. I can demonstrate my cloud software, and I have limited access for a period of 4 hours, and then that'll time out, and I'll have to get a new guest pass if I want to go for longer than that. Thanks for your attention during this demonstration, and this is the basics of how to generate guest passes and log in, allow guests to log into a guest access portal.